Was I just a fucking silhouette?
Yeah, you were.
It's kind of cool.
Hello.
Like I'm having my identity
Yo.
Can you
hidden.
hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. And I don't know, where's my camera? Do I have a camera option?
Probably gotta click the bottom left corner.
Yeah, you might have to click
I like how my identity's hidden. I should get a voice blur right now.
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. Like put like a little like static to fucking the
Lower my
picture
voice
of
a
you.
couple pitches, and it sounds like I'm one of the anonymous guys on here. This interview has been terminated.
You're just, oh, there you are. You were a shadow at first.
That was brutal.
All right, well, fuck it. Should we just go right into it? Oh, you
Sure.
smoking? Are you smoking weed?
Me?
A little
Uh,
bit.
I have some upstairs. Actually, the
No, I was
I have one of those pens, actually. Two of them, but they're not down here.
yeah, Tom, I like every other episode Tom is has quit. So that's why I was wondering.
Sometimes I'm smoking, sometimes I'm not, but I was just in California, so
There you go. When in Rome.
exactly.
Nice. That's a cool fucking studio, dude.
Yeah, it's a badass setup.
Yeah, dude, this is just like a little spot of it. This is like my drawing table area.
Legit.
And then like
Dude,
this
that's
area is,
awesome.
I wish I could do the panoramic. If I was on my phone, I could, but
Let me grab my
it's
snack.
cool. Your guys' logo was the first one I did
Really?
in the new studio. Yeah.
Damn. We get so many compliments on it, dude.
That's
We love
awesome.
it. It's
Yeah, bring it
amazing.
up on here.
I
Yeah, no
love
doubt.
I love that.
One sec.
Yeah, we'll talk a little time travel, a little skinwalker, 5G,
Oh, dude,
whatever else.
I've got all sorts of stuff. I pulled out a bunch of books from my book my book collection over here, my occult book. I wish I could show that because that's like, oh, what are we going to talk about? I'm like, oh, that's a good question. So I pulled out 5G and like pretty much I was just reading a thing about David Icke talks about just the whole um speck of reality and how we are running like a computer system. Like this is the computer, the universe is like the whole quantum realm that is powering this and our perceptions. And what was he talking about?
We got
Saturn Matrix.
let's introduce you because that's all good shit, dude. That's
Yeah.
how do you want to be introduced besides fucking the amazing artist for our artwork?
Yeah.
I mean, however you guys want to do it. I mean, I'm an artist, but I'm an artist that actually likes to study this crazy shit.
All right, well,
I don't know how.
let's we'll uh we'll just
Artist,
fucking go.
researcher,
Yeah.
Yep.
badass.
Returning guest, artist, researcher. He is the amazing artist responsible for our artwork that gets complimented nearly every single podcast we do. Of course, we're talking about the one and only Mr. Matt motherfucking Slap. What's going on, dude?
Nothing much. Just hanging out.
About to have a great conversation just like last time.
Oh yeah. It's funny. I sent it to a couple of my homeboys and they were like, man, it just sounds like a conversation that we always have. I'm like, yeah.
It's always chill vibes here
Oh yeah.
Hmm.
and
Absolutely.
deep
No.
dives.
Well, I'm pumped that everybody likes the logo.
Oh, dude. Yeah, it's are you familiar with the Cult of Conspiracy guys, the podcast that they do?
Is that the ones you just had them on?
Yeah, yeah, we did like a swap cast with them. They're pretty big in the genre. And yeah, they just fucking were Googling all over our artwork. And we're like, yeah, dude, this dude Matt did it. He's fucking amazing. We're gonna have him back on. And yeah, dude. We love it. We couldn't be more happier with it, dude.
I'm pumped. I mean, right away, that's the thing is like as an artist, like when you send something off, it's like, well, I'm really cool with this, but how are the client's gonna be like? And luckily, I haven't had too many clients over the years where it's just like, revision after revision after revision. So when I can get like, oh, yep, this is perfect. No, nothing. I'm like, awesome.
Hell yeah, dude. And I think it impacted our growth as a show too, just having a sick picture, and it goes along with it. You're already a guest, so you knew the vibe of the show.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I really enjoyed that episode you had the that podcast on. They were talking about a bunch of books that I've read, that Philip Cooper dude and whatnot, and they were totally right on him. A lot of his books focus on just guided meditation. That, I mean, that's all ritual is it's a focused meditation of what are you going to do with your mind? Like, what do you want? What do you want to achieve? How much energy do you want to put towards it? How are you going to accomplish something?
When you do some of your paintings or sculptures or drawings, how does it come about in your head? I've always, I mean, I'm not that good at drawing, but I do enjoy doing it. But I always wanted to know other people's thought process. Do you like see the picture in your head, or it kind of evolves as you're drawing it, or what?
Good
Well,
question.
the initial idea in my head, you start just drawing shapes and filling. You look at the your plane, and then you start filling in that plane of objects of however you want it, and you want to make it move and flow in that space, and make it visually pleasing and catch people's attention. So usually it just starts off with, all right, well, I kind of want to do doing this. And then I start researching poses or take pictures of friends or be like, hey, hold on, hold this and do this, and you know, just stuff like that. And I like to call that doing your homework. Like you got to do your homework. You got to go research, look at pictures, a ton of pictures until you find something. You're like, okay, cool. I've got enough to grasp where I'm gonna turn it into my own.
Yeah, there's no limit on growing as an artist, or like directions you could take it in and stuff like that. It's pretty sweet. And you play guitar too. Have you ever thought about making a comic book? Because I could picture your art in a badass comic.
Mhm.
I want to do a cartoon show, and I've always wanted to do a cartoon show. And it's funny too because like I was in art school from like 2004 to 2006, and I dropped out. I left. I was on academic probation and I went to Japan. This is how the story of Slap Ass came about. Was I didn't want to do I was failing math. I was failing shit that I was like, I don't need to know this shit to animate. Like I don't the math that I had to do. I was like, no, I don't want to do this. And then I was on academic probation. I was kind of like in that weird limbo, like, what are you gonna do? You gonna go to school? What do you want to do? It's like I kind of want to start this company. And at the time, I was like, I want to make a skateboard company. And then my brother got married. We went to Japan for his wedding, and I was talking with my whole family, and I remember we were sitting in this boat in like a fishing boat that was they built around. So like everybody's sitting in this fishing boat that they turned into a table like pool area. And I was pitching this idea to my dad and my uncle about oh, I want to start this company called Slap Ass, and I want to be, a shirt company or like skateboard clothing company. And then I just kind of explained what I wanted to do, told my dad, told my uncle, and then like the next morning in the hotel lobby, he's like, man, I couldn't go to sleep last night. He gave me like 3 pages of things. He's like, yeah, but it doesn't sound like a clothing company. It sounds like more of an art company, and you should add creations to it. And I was like, you're right. Let's do that. And then I came back to the States and was like, cool, I'm not going back to art school. I'm just going to work full time, and I'm going to save money for my first batch of shirts and just kind of go from there. And then that's it. And then I started making it and doing, getting my own press and doing all that kind of stuff. And, it's still out of my garage. It's always been in some sort of garage. I'm just in my third garage now.
So you're in a garage right now.
Right now I'm in my basement. My
Gotcha.
garage is where my press and all of like, you can get dirty and spray paint and do all that kind of stuff. But the basement's like the studio area where, you can do digital art here in the computer station, go back here, draw, set up different camera angles for different time-lapse videos of art and whatnot. So I'm gonna be doing a lot more of that. And yeah.
Love it, man. Mike, what do you think is your, well, I already know it before I was going to answer it. Photography and videography, but what else? Do you draw? Do you fuck with any instruments ever?
No,
I remember you said bass used to, right?
yeah, when I was like seventh, eighth grade, which was a long, long time ago. Yeah, I had an Ibanez. I'm left-handed, so I had an Ibanez, a left-handed five string. I think it was a like an SG 350 or something like that. I forget how what it was, but yeah, I fucked around with that for a couple of years. I thought I was gonna be, in a fucking metal band, but yeah, I gave that up pretty quickly. So yeah, I'm always fascinated with the artistic process though, because I fancy myself an artist in, like you said, photography, videography, but never been good with like drawing or anything. And obviously, I like tattoos, and I've always been fascinated by that whole process. Like whenever I go to get a tattoo, I'm always like, okay, this is what I want, but like you do everything. Like whatever you think is gonna look good, you do. You're the expert, and I always just let them go because I think that's you got to let them create.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
I did that with, so like my one arm is all, this is my idea, but I want you to do it your way. And then the other arm is all mine. Like
Brutal.
I drew the whole thing and they just I they stuck it.
Pretty sick. I mean, artists are always weirdos. So
Yeah,
artists, I
we
mean, just humans being creative is a wild thing. It's, I don't know. Like, do you guys feel like ideas are individual or unique? Or are we literally just like pulling something out of a collective like net and it's like, all right, because sometimes you think of something and then shortly later like that thing is relevant or that thing is out there, whether it's like a invention or an idea or just like a phrase or something. Do you think anything that we create or come up with is truly like 100% unique, or are we just pulling from some other realm? Like what is imagination, I guess, is what I'm trying to speculate.
I think it's a little bit of I think it's a little bit of both, right? Because like you get inspired, right? And you're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my gosh, this made me feel something. And I'm inspired to make more or do something. And then you got the ones that from the inspiration, you gain understanding and a deeper profane knowledge of what it is. And then you can tell a story allegorically through whatever it is that is going on within you. So I think it's a little bit of both of like, if you can use your imagination, um, and think it, you can do it, and that's one of the most important things about the human mind is the imagination. And that's why they're always trying to kill the imagination. And that's why they're always trying to like just keep people in that cube and discourage any possibility of thinking outside of that cube, because that out there they can't contain, because once you do that, then it becomes something even more contagious, and it sparks even more imagination to a wider variety, and it's an expansive growth. It's the force of love, right? It's contagious, it's expansive, it blows up. And the people that want to keep you in the cube is that involutionary force that wants to just crush you and break you down to very small pieces until it's nothing.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a little bit of both too. I think the younger me would have said the majority of it is probably, individual ideas and thoughts. But, the older I get, man, I just see too many instances of, like you said, Tom, I have an idea or I think of something and then fucking boom, it's there. It's in reality. And there's just been too many times that I've witnessed that, whether it be for me or by proxy, with somebody that there has to be some kind of common collective intelligence, like a mental internet, if you will. I believe Edward Casey, the famous prophet, he essentially said that as much, that there was kind of this internet of collectiveness that he was tapping into to get this knowledge. So there's got to be something to it, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
who
well, it's
knows?
funny. It's funny that you bring that up because I was just reading this David Icke book, and he talks about the creation, and I highlighted this before that I came on here, and we just ended up starting to talk about the imagination. But once we grasp the nature of the all possibility and the infinite, imagination in the fullness of its meaning and all paradox disappears. Infinite awareness is not energy, but produces energy as an imagination of the all possibility. Creation of infinite imagination and the imaginations of its imagination can manifest as the realms of what we call energy, frequency, and vibration. The further these imagined creations themselves create and become detached from a state of infinite awareness, is 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 awareness of itself, the more they fall into ever lower frequencies and so states of illusion. So I just read that before and I highlighted it, and you started talking about the imagination. I'm like, well,
That's funny, ain't it?
It's one of those instances. It's just, like, come on, man. I don't know. It's it's too much. David Icke, I love me some David Icke, man.
mm-hmm. Well, and I think people get caught up on his reptilian stuff, but like he really, I mean, the stuff that he talks about in his book is more than that. It's like this, you got to read his stuff to understand what he's talking about with these coming outside of a different frequency band that is existing at the same time as us.
Right.
So for anybody to be like, wow, I don't understand that, and that's not possible, it's like, well, you have to have a proper foundation to understand this stuff. And
That
most
and
people are kept in, well, no, it's just in the movies.
none of the guy's books are less than like 500 pages too. So yeah, it'd
Yeah,
be
look
funny if he
at
was
this
literally
book.
just like, right. I have one too. It's fucking the fattest book I've ever owned. Like
What is
it's
it?
not
It's got to be, it's like, this is a 700-page book.
exactly.
It's like The
Like,
Stand from
they're a
Stephen King.
reptilian. This person's a
Yeah.
reptilian. That person's a reptilian. It would be a pamphlet, but yeah, it's some dense reads for sure.
Well, and then he goes into like all the different religions and the similarities and where these all come from, and that like one religion is just one regurgitation of this religion and all that, but then when you go to the core of all those religions, they all started from a fucking cult. They all did, and it's all cult operated like cult shit, and people are like, no, that's not how it is. It's like, well, maybe you should learn about what a cult is. A cult, not a cult. And then you can learn about the occult.
Yeah, hand in hand.
One of the things that we wanted to talk about on this episode is something that David Icke really opened my eyes to, and that is the 5G stuff. Have you heard David Icke or read anything of David Icke about the 5G stuff?
Um, Not so much on the 5G. I just remember him talking about how the operation system works, with how we work is like how like a computer would work, and like how Wi-Fi works. Because most people don't understand how Wi-Fi and radiation and how all this stuff works. And David Icke also talks about how energy is just information, and it's just all around us. And it's like you got the Wi-Fi that's everywhere, right? And it's decoding, it's sending all this information through radiation, right? The Wi-Fi radiation is going through, and then it's going to your processor, into your computer, and getting decoded, and then put onto your screen, and then boom, here's your picture, and it's right, it's magic, right? People they're like, oh, these are magical devices. I'm just like, well, it's science, which the unknown of might seem like magic, But yeah, it's a form of magic. It's a new technology. It's this and that, but like you use it every day, but you don't know how it works, how this all works. And then when you realize that like all of these different radiation and all this other stuff that's going around in our reality field on an unseen level because our eyes can't perceive it, it's like it's not happening, right? So like if you can manipulate the field, like you can manipulate a computer, you can hack into a computer. What makes you think you can't hack into people? And that's what these 5G towers and all this other stuff is doing is, and there's a patent, and anybody can go and look it up, that it's all for mind manipulation, thought transference. And they just came out in Canada. They had the prime minister, or not the prime minister, or I saw some government thing, and they were talking about that these technologies are real, about all these people having crazy thoughts that aren't theirs, and all these different things being put into their head, and they're just being harassed. Well, now they're admitting it. And before it was just a theory, and now it's proven, and we're gridded everywhere with it.
Voice to skull technology.
Yeah, exactly. Because it talks about, maybe I have, who else is really good for all of this stuff is this author. Her name's Alana Freeland. And her last book came out, I think 2021. And it's called Geoengineered Transhumanism: How the Environment Has Been Weaponized by Chemicals, Electromagnetism, and Nanotechnology for the Synthetic Biology. It's another thick one, but they go into all the technologies. And this is the third book of a series of, all of the books are just talking about like HARP, you name it, all these technologies with all the chemtrails, everything that they're just weaponizing and ionizing our sky.
Every way possible.
Which what they talk about is, I read this other book in 2020. It's called The Invisible Rainbow by Arthur Furstenberg. This is the history of electricity and life on this planet. And they talk about all these different things. And they were saying that we've had 6 to 7 different rollouts of technologies that have had, while they got rolled out, then a pandemic happened. And they say it's an Asian flu, or it's a Hong Kong flu, or all this stuff. And, but it's really the radiation poisoning. It's all this stuff that is messing with us. Like they said here, the first one, 1889, power line harmonic radiation begun. That same year, pandemic of influenza in 1889. 1918, the radio era began, which was the Spanish flu. 1957, radar came out. The Asian flu pandemic happened. 1968, satellite era. They started doing all that. Hong Kong flu pandemic, 1968. 5 and 6 were all wireless era / HARP. And then this book that I read didn't even have 5G in it, because 5G got rolled out at the time. So like I saw an interview of that author. He's like, yeah, I published this book and then they roll out 5G. It's like they had to make another book.
Yep.
But yeah, that people don't realize the soup that is around us that has an effect on us, on the multitude of the fake food, all the processed foods that we're eating, everything that we're putting in. It's like they're trying to change this environment, like internally, externally, which I also have a theory that they're changing this environment so these new things can take form in the environment, which, transhumanism, then bringing these things from into possessing people to being like homunculuses.
Yeah, no, I think that's part of it. We can see an NPC army basically.
Yeah. Like, I forget, there was this one movie that came out in like 2018, 2017, 2018. It's called Necro something. And it's all about like they're putting all these black boxes up. It's a New Zealand film, New Zealand like horror comedy. And they're putting all these black boxes everywhere, and everybody's got these apps on their phone. And the whole app is like people are getting possessed and you got to go find them. And it's kind of like Pokemon Go, but like with this thing.
Uh-huh.
But then all of a sudden people start getting possessed by these demons, and like crazy stuff started happening, and it became like this whole, like the whole movie ended up turning into like these people running into a brigade of people that are on this fight against the satanic, horror movie shit.
You
Somebody's trying to save somebody.
you are obviously very well researched. And what so you probably I would consider you a pretty much a fucking expert on the 5G stuff. So what do you think? What is your knowledge, your findings on the 5G? What are what is your best guess?
Well, from what I've observed and what I've read, just traveling the US, you got your 5G towers in a grid going straight down a road, like going down the highways, all right, like however often they are, there's a shitload of them. And they always come in a pair of three, or like two here, and then like a little bit down, there's one more. But then if you raise yourself up and you see this, they're all in a grid. We're in this like fence, and this technological grid is happening all around us. Like, and people don't even know it because they can't even see it. They're not even looking. They're like blinders. Like, oh yeah, oh the phone. Like they instead of looking up and being like, well, what is this shit? And why do I see so many of these fucking towers? What's going on here? And I think it is a part of manipulation, because there's so much mind control going on just within our media. And so you were talking about, like, you guys are in your last, not your last podcast, but the one where you're talking about like psyops. And I'm also reading this book called Mind War, and it's by Michael Aquino. Are you guys familiar with who Michael Aquino is?
I don't think so.
I believe he's a
Satanic guy in the army or whatever.
Yes, yes. 100%. So in here, this whole book is all about the psychology of controlling the masses. And it's called Mind War because they talk about like moving groups of people and without having to use physical war. And it's fascinating because you read this stuff, and it's just like, well, yeah, this shit's fucking happening. But like you guys were talking about psyops, and he gives definitions to all this stuff because he said he helped coined all these terms. So psychological operations, which is your psyop, is planned operations to convey selected information and indicators to foreign audience to influence their emotions, motives, objective reasoning, and ultimately the behavior of foreign governments, organizations, groups, and individuals. The purpose of psychological operation is to induce or reinforce foreign attitudes and behaviors favorable to the originator's objectives. And then you've got psychological warfare, which is a psi war. And he says here, is the planned use of propaganda and other psychological actions to influence the opinions, emotions, attitudes, and belief and behaviors of hostile foreign groups in such a way as to support the achievement of a national objectives. And then you got propaganda, any form of communication in support of nations' objectives designed to influence the opinions, emotions, attitudes, and behaviors of any group in order to benefit the sponsor either directly or indirectly. So like this book is like, it blows my mind because it's like they tell you, they publish this stuff.
It's the playbook.
And people don't, they keep people, like I was saying in our last, the short-minded, the TikTok nation. It's now, don't look back. Now, just keep going now. Don't look back. Look here. Here. What? Drink, drugs, drink. Like
Literally.
women.
Base level things.
Yeah. And I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this book. It's called Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars.
Yep.
You read this? Have you
Never read
seen
it, but
this?
I've seen it referenced a lot.
So these are all like random books that I like. Two of them I'm reading, and a couple of them I just, because I knew I was coming on, I'm like, all right, cool. These are some things that I heard you guys talk about and I wanted to bring up. But it's funny because the first page I opened up to was division, the primary strategy to of everything.
Always.
And they just talk about like literally, we want to disintegrate their minds, sabotage their mental activities by providing a low quality program of public education in the mathematics, logic, systems designs, and the economics by discouraging technical creativity. There's that imagination.
Yep.
Again. Two, engaging their emotions, increasing their self-indulgence and their indulgence in emotional and physical activities by unrelenting emotional affirmations and attacks, mental and emotional rape by way of a constant barrage of sex, violence, and war media, especially the TV and the newspapers. B, by giving them what they desire in excess, junk food for thought, and depriving them of what they really need. 3, rewriting history and law and subjecting the public to the deviate creation, thus being able to shift their thinking from personal needs to highly fabricated outside priorities. And we're watching this shit.
Yep.
It's like, it's
what's the name of that book?
It's called Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. It's a small little pamphlet book. And it says in the beginning that like, they don't really know where this came from. They found it in a copy machine, apparently. And they said the guy who they did pin it on, they said, oh, he was a criminal and all this stuff happened. And but then the guy's like, I'm only went to jail because of this book. I only went to jail because these people they wanted to make it really hard for me because they knew that I got all this information from all these different people, insiders, blah, blah, blah. But who knows? I mean, either way, even if majority of that stuff is bullshit, you could still pick up the nuggets of gold. That's the thing is you got to look at all this shit and then be like, what do I do? Do I believe this? Or it's like, well, no, you got to use your gut.
In my mind, the fact that they went after him kind of adds legitimacy to his claim, right? I mean,
yeah, totally.
Yeah, they're not going to come after you if that's what's so crazy about some of these denials with like secret projects and whatnot. It's like they go after some of these people so hard that it's like if they're just like Bart Sabrell, if he's just a silly little guy that thinks we never landed on the moon, why do you guys come after him so hard? It's like what yeah. To me, it just gives him credence.
Yeah. Oh, I love that episode that you had the dude that came on about all the space landings. Because I've seen that guy's videos and it's just like, why are you guys getting so mad?
Mm-hmm.
Why would anybody get so mad?
Truth does not fear investigation.
That's for sure.
Anytime you're not allowed to look into something, you should probably look into it.
Yeah. That's when you should look into it the most, right?
What's your favorite thing to look into? Because obviously you are knowledgeable on several different subjects.
Uh, I mean, I like all of that stuff. I like anything that has to do with magic. I like supernatural stuff. I like the things that I've always liked horror movies, and the thing that really got me was the unexplained, the unknown part of horror movies, like zombie movies. Like a true zombie movie, I always get into arguments with people. Is true zombie movie is there's no explanation of how this happened. It's just happening, and we don't know what's going on. Is it what's going on? It's like, well, that's the luster of the movie. That's what gives it that magic. That's what gives it that, like, we don't know what's going on. Oh no, it's the government. It's like, well, that's not a true zombie movie. That's a man-made crisis. Like true zombie movies has to do with, well, what is it? It has to do with the moon. Does it have to do with this? But then again, all zombie movies are political statements.
How so?
Well, like a lot of George Romero movies were based off of like society. The whole thing of I believe, was it Dust Till what was that? The one where they're in Dawn of the Dead, when they're in the mall. That's all about consumerism, because everybody's trapped in a mall and they got all this material, but they can't get out because they got all these people that just want to eat their brains and eat them because they're consuming everything. And I know all of his movies have an underlying theme of what's going on in society and politically whatnot. That's just from reading interviews and being a nerd.
Well, what if 5G gives us the NPC zombies that every movie's conditioned us for, and that's the ultimate psyop? 5G turns the truly most, the most nanotechnology filled, the most highly vaccinated, the most
Well,
sheepish of
it's
everyone into a
already
zombie.
happening. It's already happening. I mean, we're watching zombies every fucking day. Like I see it every day. Like I watch people in almost every angle of life. There's a phone right here, and they're connected. And like anytime that I've gone out to breakfast, I sit down and I am just like looking at people just sitting across from each other. They
Yeah.
got food, but both people are on their phones. And I'm just like, they own people. They own people's minds, because all this stuff is about data, right? Because like after starting to read this Mind War book, um, that's all just going off of data. And they know the data of the human psyche, and then they can now track everybody. They don't need to chip everybody. Everybody's got a phone. Everybody's being observed anyways. 2020, everybody stayed inside and consented to give all of their information away. Um, just consuming, doing all this stuff, right? And then now they can forecast a movement. Now they can take an Hegelian dialect and cybernetically forecast and infuse that into the masses and do it. I mean, look, 2020, look at all the riots. Like that was crazy. Just watching that, I'm like, oh my God. And like once they can like take people and get them together, they can literally just, it creates this egregore, which becomes a life of its own. And it's either gonna consume you, and you're gonna become part of this egregore, or you're going to be spit out. And that's why you don't want to go to a riot. That's why you don't want to go to like any kind of protest, is because like emotionally triggered, boom, and then you're either spit out or you're in it, and you're going, and then all of a sudden you're like, what happened? What came over me? What's going on? It's like, well, I could tell you, but are you gonna believe me? It's like it's all occult information. It's all science of how we work and how they can hijack our minds, our energy, and turn us into drones. They're weakening us.
Without a doubt.
hmm In a classic sense of zombie, I always wondered, okay, rabies is essentially making a dog a zombie, right? That's what it is. So what if the rabies vaccine somehow mutated or jumped to human? That would pretty much make us zombies. I mean, that's what rabies is. It's incurable once it's taken over. You seek out, like, you become more violent and you can't hold water down. That's why you eventually die.
Oh
Because you
wow.
you yeah, like you are so thirsty and you want water, but your body physically can't take it. It's
Oh
it's it's the scariest thing, rabies, because there's no cure.
wow. Yeah, and then no one, when you have to get all those shots in your gut, you get what, three shots in your stomach or something like that.
Yeah, I think there's been one lady ever who survived having rabies, and it was an experiment. It was recently, and it was an experimental treatment where they put her in a an induced coma, so she could, I guess, suffer all of. So her body basically was able to fight it off because they shut everything else down. That's what they theorized anyway. But she's like the only person ever to survive having rabies. I mean, if you get treatment very shortly after, within like 24 hours, you'll be okay. But let's say you get bitten and then you go 2 weeks, you're fucked.
Yeah,
Scary.
that is
What do you
scary.
think was the main psyops before we? Because I know something else we wanted to talk about was time traveling, and I was thinking, dude, I wish we could time travel even not too far back, just to the fucking 90s and even the early 2000s or 2010s, where like cell phones were still a thing and shit, but it was like you could text, you could call, maybe you could go on some internet until your thing ran out, and it was the slowest piece of shit ever. It wasn't like the phone was always in everyone's hand. Yeah, you'd be texting, but fuck, like it's gone too far.
Yeah, I mean, just and they call these smartphones, right? But they're only as smart as the users.
Everyone's yeah, and they're making everyone dumb.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you guys were talking about it. It was just like I think you guys were talking about the TikTok thing and how they don't even China doesn't even let the kids go on TikTok. And if they
Nope.
do, they go on these apps that are like super smart and like teaching these kids actual things that are gonna give you value in your life or have some use for it rather than shaking your ass and being like, yeah, this is what I do.
How
Check
did
it
they
out.
psy up us the most in previous generations? Cartoons and movies and sports, I guess.
Yeah. What was it? Oh, I wrote something down about hold on. I took a note and you were talking about what I think Mike, you said what do you think is the greatest psyop? And I think you guys were talking about religion, right? You guys were
Yeah.
religion being, and I think that's for sure the biggest psyop because I think the cults are, and once you can establish a cult under the sub guise of a religion, then you really got people because you're just taking esoteric knowledge and you can sound really smart to somebody that doesn't get this shit. Oh, what's going on? So like you can manipulate a bunch of people that are just gullible as shit and they're like, oh, he can save me, he can do this. You get people to start doing stuff for you, and then oh boy, the macro and the micro.
The types of people that like to call themselves the elite or the
Yeah.
they're just very skilled in disciplines that were hidden from us and taken away from us, and they can use it for nefarious means. Like they understand the mind, they understand astrology, they understand magic, they understand all this crazy shit that we haven't been allowed to know about or understand, and they're tricky with how they you know outwit everybody in a way. Like
There was
if you think
something David Icke was saying in this book about energy, and I think this is what he was saying within perceptions equal frequency, frequencies we interact with in the quantum field equal what we decode and make holographically manifest in as experienced reality. Accidents happen. That's what everyone says. But in the quantum universe, there are no such thing as accidents, only possibilities and probabilities folded into existence by perception.
I think we definitely have the power to make things come about, whether this is computer program or that's just part of the mind's way of interacting with the world around us, and that's why they want to kill imagination.
Well, yeah, and especially if the masses had the imagination and it goes into what we were talking about the last episode was the artists and the people that are the most exploited and used. But like if those were used in the correct way to actually uplift and help people become just as they are, as this is me, I'm an individual, instead of I'm an icon and you need to be an influencer like me and you need to be me, instead of being like, hey, become the best that you can be and whatever it is that is flowing within you. And if that became such a huge force, they wouldn't need to pervert everything, because everything, the truth of that which is, would be it would be understood. It wouldn't be what's your truth. It's not what is truth. What is truth? Because that essentially is that which is, that which was, and that which will always be, and it's eternal. And if people got that, then they could probably start to understand what creation is and how it powers this whole matter, all of the matter here in this dense, slowed down plane of existence. If we sped up, we could walk through the walls and see different realities and different colors on an unbelievable spectrum. But everybody's stuck here in this tesseract, right? It's folding in on it, over on it, on itself, and they want to control that, and it's not how it works. But that's a lot of work. So it's like, if I can help people along that way to maybe gain some understanding, to level them up so they can keep climbing that ladder to become better, that's what I try to aim to do, because I'm doing that by myself, on my own, through books and whatever experiences I get and people I meet. And I'm always getting inspired by fans, anybody who's fans of my art, anybody I meet at a convention, anybody that's just like, they want to talk about this stuff. It's really surprising. Like, we see and we surround ourselves with people that are like-minded and want to like watch this show and hear about these ideas that we're talking about. And maybe they'll help us bring into higher ideas and better thinking, and maybe inspire you to do the work and figure something else out so you can change the world too. Because if we don't change it through ourselves, it's not going to happen, because we're just mirrors here. We're just reflecting what's going on in here and trying to bring that vision of what we see here and what we feel here and what we pull down and pull in from all around us to help. That's what I want to do here, and try to help expand and crush realities of what you think it was, that, and what this place is and how it actually operates. And
That's what you call
scary.
devastate the system.
Let me ask you guys both. There's been a ton of different people throughout like the internet age that have claimed to time travel and be time travelers. There's a couple of real famous ones like John Teeter. What's the man from Torad is another one that was real popular.
Passport guy.
Yeah, that's not real, but Yeah, doing some research for this episode on time travel, came across some of these names. I wanted to know if either of you guys have heard of any of the famous quote unquote time travelers of the internet age, or I guess, and do you guys think time travel is possible?
Well, I think if we can think it, it is possible, and I think it's possible beyond our reality can fathom, but like it's probably simpler than we think. And but we just I think there's people that have this knowledge, but I also think it's one of those things that could make reality like fold in on itself. It's like especially if you've seen that movie Event Horizon, is like they attention well what they do, they bet space, but then they ended up going into hell. So I guess it isn't really so much time travel, but it's more of bending the space in that movie, but like still like butterfly effect. And that was just like that was essentially time travel. It's like a Marvel what if movie.
It is a trippy paradox. I mean, I think I've seen things on why it could be theoretically possible, or maybe like examples of things like that happening, or yeah, you slip into a different reality, or people say maybe time isn't just linear from past, present, future, that it's all kind of like one string and it's all occurring at the same time, or it's all already occurred past, present, and future. So, I mean, if it was something like that, you would think maybe you could slip to a different part of it without disrupting everything, or maybe that has been happening and that's what CERN was doing, and that's why we have the Mandela effect and other shit like that, because something like that's already happened. Who knows?
You brought up the Mandela effect and CERN. So have either one of you guys heard of the aforementioned John Teeter?
Mm-mm. I
Probably,
can
but go ahead. What about him?
So when Art Bell was alive and he was doing Coast to Coast, he received a fax, and this he received two faxes back to back days, and the faxes stated um, that he was this man named John Teeter was a time traveler from an offshoot of a certain successful fusion reactor research program. Scientists from CERN produced the world's first contained singularity engine. It involved rotating singularities inside a magnetic field. By alternating the speed and direction of the rotation, you can travel both forwards and backwards through time. When you go back in time, you travel on your original timeline, but when you turn off your singularity engine, a new timeline is created, hence the Mandela effect. So he received these faxes back to back days, then nothing for 2 years. Then 2 years goes by. This gentleman named John Teeter starts posting on these message boards. Okay. He states that he states that he is from the year, from the future, from 250 years in the future, but time travel cannot take place past 2564 for unknown reasons. He was sent back from 2036 to get an IBM 5100 computer system from the year 1975. His time machine is a stationary mass temporal displacement unit manufactured by General Electric. The unit is powered by two top spin dual positive singularities that produce a standard offset Tipler sinusoid, or a Templar cylinder, which is a real hypothetical time theory postulated by Frank Tipler in 1974. What's crazy is the IBM 5100, the reason why he needed it is because they need to debug legacy computer programs in the year 2036 because Unix has a problem in 2038. Remember Y2K? A similar issue. Here's the crazy thing. Um, when they postulate and they do, it's a 32-bit system and they need to upgrade it to 64. When they do the math, the last day is January 19th, 2038, which is the year he said there was an issue. I guess that IBM 5100 had a special feature that wasn't known to the mass public, where it could run a program, but it also could run APL IBM mainframes. Only IBM engineers knew of this, and they were afraid of letting the public know it might fall into the wrong hands. Um, Obviously, I don't know if this is true or not, but this guy, whoever is John Teeter, was very knowledgeable. There's been a couple of people that have are the primary suspects. This guy named Joseph Matheny, and then a couple of brothers from Florida that are attorneys. But either way, an amazing story, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
a
it's
trip.
crazy.
Yeah,
It also
I
makes me
mean,
think of Terminator.
and you know what? Okay, so this is what's crazy, bro, because remember I said there was two people, two main suspects, well, two categories, because there was one man and then there was another group of brothers. And those group of brothers said that they modeled it after John Connor from the Terminator. So, you know what? That's probably exactly what it is. We've all heard of the man from Torad. Doing a little bit of research, that's kind of easy to debunk. The Philadelphia Experience, the Montauk Project. But the one that really convinces me, dude, have you guys ever heard of Andrew Carlson?
Mm.
Okay, so
Making
check
up a
this
name.
out. Bro, this is the one that makes me wonder. Because, okay, in 2003, a 44-year-old man named Andrew Carlson, spelled Carlssin, he was arrested for insider trading. In 2 weeks, he had made 126 consecutive high-risk profitable bets on the stock market, turning $800 into 350 million. The
Whoa.
SEC looked into him during a 4-hour interrogation. He explained he traveled back in time from 250 years in the future with the knowledge of high-profile stock trades. He said that he planned to make it look natural by losing a couple here and there, but it was just too tempting. They thought he was a lunatic or a pathological liar because in their minds there was only one way to pull it off, and that's insider trading. They demanded he give up his source. However, he never wavered from his story. He offered to give them a cure for AIDS and the whereabouts of Osama bin Laden for a lighter sentence. He said he didn't care about the money. He would give it all back as long as he could return to his craft and his original timeline. He refused to give the location of his craft due to fear of what could happen and him being stuck here. Um, he was held on $1 million bond awaiting trial. He had no family or friends or no money, but after a few weeks in custody, a mysterious, unidentified man posted Carlson's bail of $1 million in cash. The mystery man and Carlson have never been seen or heard from since.
Brutal.
What the fuck is that, dude? Dude, come on.
I mean, why not? I
Uh,
mean, we got Hollywood telling us. We got Hollywood telling us through these crazy movies, through all of this stuff. It's like the occult talks about Atlantis being like, well, that's the reason we got a cataclysm is because we had this crazy technocracy that we have emerging again. That it's like, well, they essentially had what we have now is an occultocracy, technocratic, uh, technocracy that's like ruling everything. And now they're like, oh, we got AI, we got this and that. But I think that was a force that has always been here. It's just been waiting for the technology to get to the point where it's now slowly but surely, it's getting there.
Oh yeah.
That's what what's his name? John D was doing. John D was um tapping into, he was a magician tapping into with these entities, these demons or whatever, these ultra terrestrial beings doing ritual magic or ceremonial magic, and all of a sudden he's talking to these people. They want to give you information. What do they want? They want blood.
Yep.
They're demons, but essentially it's like, all right, well, cool, here we'll give you all this information, but yeah, in 900 years the technology, it'll take you 900 years or 300 years to get to where you are. And now we're all seeing that, like, coming into this bottleneck where it's like, okay, remember we grew up on all these movies that are kind of coming true now, so we gonna like stop letting them and consenting to this shit and maybe do something with it, or you know just, oh, it's not happening. Don't look over here, look over here.
No, we'll get the Terminators. We're gonna we're very close to bots patrolling the streets, I think.
Black Mirrors, man.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever watched any of the Black Mirrors or are familiar with them. That show's creepy because it's
Yeah.
like a new
mhm.
age version, or it's like a futuristic, what, a Twilight Zone is what it is. It's, and like they're talking about, like, they had an episode where you can upload your consciousness into the cloud. Like you it's a technology that ends up like going into your like interface, like you put something here and it goes into your consciousness somehow, and you can play like literally firsthand like fighter games and all that kind of stuff. But then the one episode, these two women were in this AI universe, or like this cloud, this reality, and you could pick out whatever era you want to go to, the 90s, the 70s, the 80s, whatever wherever you want to go, whatever style you want to do. But then like one of the characters was on her deathbed. She was on like hospice, but they only would let her go into this universe for like a couple hours a day. So the one chick that met her, she was ended up dying, but you had the option of uploading your essence into the cloud, into these giant servers, and we're like so close to being there. I mean, look at what Elon Musk is doing with Neuralink and stuff. And then they had an episode where when you're born with this technology in you where you can cast any of your thoughts on whatever screen in the room. Like your memories, you can go back into your database and play a memory and watch it on TV, but you can cast it. And this was at a time when I don't even think you could cast anything onto the TV yet. And then now all of a sudden we can cast our phones onto a screen. Well, they're going to go to another that much further with your memories and being able to like sell it on like never be able to forget, never forget.
Unreal. And then they put false memories in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's like Blade Runner shit. Blade Runner, they were giving everybody a false idea of who they are. That's the story of the Anunnaki.
Yep.
Like we made this worker race and we implanted memories into your minds. Like, well, they can already do that shit. And they've been telling us that shit for a long time, and now it's just like it's like a soft opening to a new store. This is a soft opening to new things that we're going to be doing to you, population.
Unreal.
Are you a believer in the Anunnaki theory?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a believer of that there is. I don't know about if they made us or not. Like, I haven't read enough to make me fully convinced, but what I have read and what I can come to a conclusion is that everything is like, when you just look at religion, how everything is a regurgitation or rebranding of an old idea. Well, I think that this idea of who we are. I believe that we've always been here. I think we've been hijacked. I think we've been hijacked. Just our minds have been hijacked, and we've been bred to like that whole Anunnaki theory of that maybe we were slaves or whatnot. But I think we don't know where we come from. We really don't know where we come from, and I don't believe fucking science, because they haven't given me. They've been telling us nothing but lies. Just look at when we were growing up as kids, what they told us what the fucking pyramids were. Like, it's just a tomb. No, I don't think so. They didn't tell us about like, oh, the magic that we all possess within us and all that shit, and that these people knew it way better than and understood it, what spirit was and what it was in this realm and what it was then. And it's just, we got to pick these paradigms, and we got to pick through them all just so we can figure out where we came from and where did where did we go wrong and what happened, because none of the history is right. It's all a load of shit. It's all a load of shit.
It would be hard to pinpoint where we really went dark. I like to always speculate around the Druids and stuff, and there's connections of the Druids and Egypt and shit. And I was thinking, off of what we're talking about, what if like Stonehenge and all these megaliths and the pyramids and ziggurats and shit that are lined up on like ley lines around the earth and like a grid, what if they were the original 5G towers to psyop the ancient
That's
people?
funny that you say that, because they
Mhm.
were. They were.
With electricity, right?
Yep, it was. That's what they were. Is like they were they were like talismanic because they had all of these hieroglyphs and stuff, and they were all on energetic ley lines. I mean, there's a reason that they have them all over this place. They're still, it's old technology, right? It's just not, it's dated
Right.
and yeah, it's crazy stuff. I mean, that they did harness our energy. They did use it against us. That's when Egypt is when magic got corrupted. I think we were at a higher place of consciousness, and that like what Egypt was the highest, and then it just like went away. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. And from what they're talking about, Egypt is like, well, these guys didn't make these pyramids either. They're talking about it was pre like Lemurian like cataclysm shit, like Atlantis stuff, like which whether Atlantis is a real place or a time era or whatever it was a state of consciousness that was far more superior than where we were, and there was a lot of crazy shit going on. Just whether they were dinosaurs or elemental creatures and crazy shit that we could see that were bigger, and everything was much bigger. Like you go to New Zealand, everything's fucking huge. The spiders are huge, everything is huge.
The dinosaurs one. So when I first heard that there was a movement that people were denying dinosaurs, maybe about 5, 6 years ago, when I kind of first came on my radar, I thought, what a fucking stupid one. And then I looked into it. And now I'm pretty sure there was no such thing as dinosaurs. So, yeah, when you find out that they've never found like more than like three bones together, it's like when you find out the origin of it is all like fucking backstabbing, lying, cheating. It's like, yeah, dude, you can't trust science.
No, it's between NASA and all that stuff. It's like you're better off like go stick your head in the occult world, because you'll start to find out some shit that like you're like, what, where, this is how reality works, and this is how this all works, and it's just like, well, pick out a part of consciousness that you want to know about, and you will learn an immense amount about who you are if you started just understanding the basics of it, the basics of all these sacred sciences like tarot, the whole all the constellations, the zodiac, like all that stuff that is considered woo woo, it's all a sacred science about how we operate and how this plane of existence is.
I
I
wanted to
trust.
ask, oh, I'm sorry, brother, you go.
I was gonna say I trust mythology more than I trust
Oh
the
yeah.
shit we're being given.
Well, and they're just retelling the greatest stories that have ever been told, and they're all like different allegories of the same shit.
Literally.
Right? So it's like, okay, cool. We are once we realize that all this stuff's about us and not externally out like somewhere else, that someone's going to come in and swoop in and get you and save you and hug you and tell you everything's okay. It's like, no, we live in a realm of action where you can pull yourself out of this and you can do it, but you have to let go and relearn and reintegrate stuff. You can't just like have it be like, okay, cool, I'm now a fireman. It's like, well, you got to do the shit to become a fireman, right? You can't just be a fireman.
Well, we live and fake it till you make it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, YOLO, live your own life.
Something that was said earlier got me wanting to ask you guys, because I'm sure both of you are way more well researched in this area than I am. And that is Aleister Crowley and the being a lamb that he supposedly communicated with. You guys are familiar with this?
Yeah, the
Yes.
big headed thing.
Yeah, like the gray, like
Yes,
gray alien that's right behind you there.
right.
Pretty much a lamb
Exactly.
right there.
What do you
Yeah,
guys think of that?
it's pretty
It's fucking
wild.
wild. He had a
What's
Yoda
happening?
demon too.
What's that?
He summoned something that looked like Yoda, he said too.
Yeah, that's what the the Alphys Levi was talking about in like ceremonial magic, summoning different things. Yeah, Jordan Maxwell talks about that one big time, about Yoda being this demon, and they're just pretty much they're summoning these creatures, these entities to come through and to give them knowledge so they can start doing this stuff. But like, I don't know, there's something about all of that kind of magic, anything that has to do with like summoning or invoking another entity to come in, either in you or channeling, or there's just something that doesn't sit right with me. I think that it's a type of magic, but I think it's a form of you're giving up part of who you are for these things to come in and operate through you, and start fucking with your energy and the world that you live in and doing other things. But like, when you start getting these things to do stuff for you, well, that's going to come back to you big time. And it's gonna come, like, you think it's bad here and you're gonna be judged. You're gonna like take yourself back from evolving to de-evolving if you're using these things in a sorcerer mindset.
Do you know anyone who went deep into that?
I've had friends that didn't summon stuff like magically, that had no idea what they were doing, but I had friends that fucked with drugs and
Yeah.
fucked with entities that didn't even know what they were doing. And that was kind of part of one of the stories that story I told you
Right.
guys about my friend and his kids and whatnot. But like, that's a case point right there. Was like, okay, man, you're fucking with shit that you have no idea. You're lowering your energy so you can be with these things and be in a certain state of mind, and these things have an influence on you, but then, you know then people just blame it on the drugs, and it's just a psychosis thing. It's like, well, there's a fine line of, yeah, there's a psychosis, but like, you're also entering a different state of reality. You're in an altered state, and no one's going to believe you, because no one can hear this shit and see the things that you're seeing, because you've made a pact, whether you know it or not. And you are interfacing with something that is going to cosmically fuck you up and make your life really messy and really not cool until you go, okay, fuck this. It's time to start doing the work and becoming a good person, or maybe just making better choices. How about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that it doesn't seem like a bad idea or a bad choice to most people to summon an entity from an unseen realm. It sounds like a pretty
Well,
obvious bad choice.
there's people that love doing that, though. I
Oh
mean,
hell
there's a
yeah!
whole realm of that. Like, I've been in a handful of magic shops. I like going into them because I like having conversation with people that are messing with stuff, or just open to having these types of conversations.
Right.
You'd be really surprised. I went to a I went to a magic shop, and um they were having a conversation about, we had a total conversation about natural law. And are you guys familiar with like natural law, like the Kabbalion, or like any of the Hermetic principles of like what really bind our soul here? You guys
I'm sure
familiar?
I'm
Nope.
familiar with some like you know laws of the universe or whatever, if you will. But go ahead and give us a
Right. So it's
for
like,
dummies version.
hold on one second. I've got it written down right here.
Natural philosophy, but no, that's about
So
it.
like, you got the seven Hermetic principles, right? Which you got mentalism, that's the first one. And the universe is mental, the all is mind. So like, anytime anything comes into existence here, like infrastructure, cars, anything that has been made or anything, all has to start in mind before it enters this plane of existence. So you're pulling stuff down, right? The second one is correspondence, as above, so below, as within, as without. Um, the third one is vibration. Everything vibrates, nothing rests. The fourth one is polarity. Everything has its pair of opposites. So you got your positive and a negative, and everything really, it's the same thing. So it's like you got cold water and then you got like hot boiling water, but it's all the same thing. It's just a different degree of the same thing. So you got hot and cold, all that kind of stuff, but it's really one. And then you got rhythm. Everything has a rise and fall, like a tide, a pool, an ebb and flow. Then you got cause and effect. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. And then you have gender. And everything has a masculine and a feminine principle to them. So all of us have a masculine and feminine aspect to us, right? And when it comes down to all of this stuff, this is what binds our soul here. This is what governs who we are, our energy. So this conversation we're having here, I'm listening to their conversation. We had this whole conversation about that story that I told you about my friend and all that stuff. And I was trying to explain these principles to him and blah, blah, blah. And then this is, his story happened. And inevitably I had to walk away. So I'm talking to these to these people at this magic shop about, natural law is the principle and not principle, but like foundational teaching before you can even mess with magic, really. So like, you have to understand that natural law is a thing, and you have to understand that like everything will come back to you based on your intention. So what you put out is what you get back, kind of a thing. So, and they're agreeing with me. They're like, oh yeah, and they're like rolling their eyes. They're like, oh yeah, that he's so stupid for not listening to you. But then the dissonance in this, I hear another customer come in, and then they're talking about their kids. Are like, oh yeah, our kids are totally doing the gender thing right now. And we fully support them, and they're doing all this stuff. And I got a him, her, and a she, he, and all this stuff. And I'm like, wait, you guys own a magic shop, and we just got done talking about natural law, and you're letting your kids go against the last natural law, which is gender, and you're going against that which is. So that's fine. You can make that choice if that's what you want to do. That's your choice to make, but your consequence to going against that which is suffering. That's where all your suffering is going to come from, is when you don't want to accept the truth of the objective reality. Like, plain and simple. So like I was at this place and they were talking about this, and I'm just like, but that's the majority of people. Like, they'll have an understanding of fundamental things, but then they think they can rework them and make it how they want it to be, or how they want to go against the truth and make reality the way that they want it to be, rather than making reality that way. Like, oh, I wish I'm suffering right now because my friend died, or my girlfriend broke up with me, or this, and I can't accept it. So you're suffering. But what's the truth of the matter? As soon as you accept it and you can mourn with it and deal with it and move forward, then that's number one of, okay, you've got a cosmic principle. You understand the idea of God and truth, and creation, however you want to look at it.
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of people in, I guess, alternative view spaces or consciousness or whatever, walking into a magic shop or a crystal shop or whatever, you're going to get a 50-50. You might get someone who's completely, brainwashed while being open-minded and into these type of things, or you get someone who's just kind of open and does their own thing. Something that I thought of a little bit ago that was creeping me out when I was like, you would think that that's a bad idea, and that people love doing that type of shit sometimes, like summoning or whatever. And you think back, like especially around uh, our generation was younger, girls were up to some creepy shit at like sleepovers. Like I was friends with these two girls in uh, middle school and like elementary school, and they were great. Whatever. I still talk to them from time to time, but they were up to some creepy shit and like led to some like legitimate hauntings and stuff. And we'd like they'd want to play with like Ouija board when we'd hang out when we were younger, and like some shit happened like when we did that once, and like a wallet went flying off the table. I still thought it was one of the older girls like messing with us. The one that I'm like, come on, she's moving her fingers around on the thing.
Oh
And
yeah.
that was a little creepy. But these two girls, they made it their intention to, in their words, create an energy. So they like named this entity, like, and they started like talking all the time and like acting like they were hanging out with it and like putting energy into it, giving it a name, like hanging out with it, like trying to like do a ritual like daily to like nurture this energy and entity that they were making, an imaginary friend or spirit, if you will. And guess what? It fucking worked. And eventually, they didn't want to say the name anymore, and they still wouldn't. Like when I saw one of them like years ago, was telling the story and stuff, but still would not say the name because she was like, no, if I say the name, like something will start happening
Mhm.
again. Like it climaxed when like the guitar in the room would strum by itself, or like the sheets or like the blinds would move and doors would close. And then one time they were talking about it and like getting like upset about it and like, why did we do this or something, was like the vibe. And then a box of scissors went flying off the like top of a cabinet or something, like sharp objects went flying across the room.
Yeah, that's crazy because like essentially they made an egregore, right? So
Yep.
they made something, but then they went a little further, and it could have been like a mix of an entity coming through that came in and was like, all right, cool, I'm here, and now they're feeding me everything that I need. And
Exactly.
and then you start, there's especially if they say his name in three. If they say his name in three, then it's just like, oh, now you're dealing with demonic stuff.
I'm sure that's what they did. Like I said, girls were up to some weird shit when we were younger, always into some like witchy, like
Mhm.
culty type of thing when they would get together. And the boys would just like beat the crap out of each other or go fucking sneak in somewhere where you shouldn't have been. And meanwhile, girls were doing literal seances and shit, and their
Well,
12-year-old get-togethers.
there's something to be said about that stuff too. And people don't realize that, like, in this one book that I was reading, it was Elf Levi. It's the history of magic, and I've heard you guys talk about this, and even the dude, the Nephilim dude that you had on, that you just had back on, was talking about how the Nephilim pretty much taught, was it the Nephilim, or was it the I think it was the Nephilim that took the wives of man
Uh-huh.
and taught them magic, or if it was like the Anunnaki that took took on interest in women because they were spiritually more advanced than the men, and they taught them magic and makeup and all of this stuff. And they've always, but as women, that's their natural state, is to have a higher connection spiritually than the men. And it's our job as men to protect the women because they are the spiritual seers and the spiritual, like, it's nuts because there's a dynamic between the yin and the yang, the masculine and
Yep.
the feminine, the positive, the negative, and like how it just flows within itself. And it's crazy. And what they're doing now with everything is like they're confusing everybody. They're making boys think that they're girls and girls that they're boys. It's, what was it? What they say in Ghostbusters? It's like, it's crazy. It's raining dogs and cats, and like guys are girls and girls are guys. They don't even know. It's like that's what's going on right now. Is that like these are chaos magicians that are just like, they've got people's minds like right here, and they're like, guess what? We're just gonna put this in your head and play, and people fall for it, hook, line, and sinker.
Invert the
It just
natural order.
perpetuates itself, right? Hmm. But I also do see like consciousness. I I see consciousness doing this, but everybody in the truth community thinks that this is happening. Like we're right here. And it's like, no, we're coming out of that like whole Kali Yuga, cycle of darkness. Like now we're in the transition of everybody's like, we're going into the golden age. It's like, no, we're going into the bronze age. Just still a transition period, which we're not quite there, but let's keep going. And I see that psyop playing out, like the whole new age.
Oh yeah.
Aliens are the saviors. That's the new religion on top of the scientism shit and all that stuff. But I also see like spirituality and science could come together if it was played right. Like we're talking about quantum physics, right? Quantum shit. That's nothing new in the occult. That's it. I was watching this one guy talk about how when scientists catch up to the occult, the cult has been leagues ahead, and they're just now starting to bring up these new ideas that they're like, oh, they're new. It's like, no, they're not. They're really not, and we should be teaching this shit in school.
Well, yeah, all the greatest minds back in the day were masters of so many disciplines that you would now consider occult or fake or a non-existent or a pseudoscience. Like all those great minds were doing all types of crazy stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, have you ever seen that movie, The Last Samurai?
Well,
uh
with Tom Cruise.
Tom
sure.
Cruise movie, and it's a fantastic movie. Um, and they talk about the aspect of the mind a lot. And I love that movie because I remember the one scene in that movie where he's like, "Oh, he's too fast. He'll beat me." He's teaching him sword fighting, and the one guy's like, "Too many mind." He's like, "Huh? Like you're thinking too much. It's too many mind. Simplify it and just get into a flow state." So, I that's a great movie for anybody that wants to see like Japanese old time, like pretty much the end of the samurais is what that one was about.
Brutal.
Speaking of Japanese TV or movie, have you guys ever heard or seen of I believe it's Japanese. It's a series on Netflix. It's called Alice in Borderland.
Mm-mm. No.
Dude, it is fucking it's so good. If you could get past the dubbing,
Okay.
if that doesn't bother you too bad, it's actually not. I mean, it's not the greatest dub, but it's not. It's I'm picky and I got through it. So,
Well,
but
yeah,
dude, the
Jap.
concept, you guys would fucking love it, dude.
Okay,
It's good.
check it out.
Good shit.
Have you guys seen Shin Godzilla?
Mm.
No.
Oh, that's the shit. That's the best Godzilla one. That's like a straight Japanese movie. It was probably in like 2019 or something, maybe. I don't even remember, but it's fucking good, man. Godzilla goes through like an evolution. He starts out as like a slug, like tadpole, like can barely walk, like grotesque thing on land, and then he kind of levels up and turns into this horrific nuclear monster. And he's not like fighting other monsters; he's just destroying things. So it's pretty cool.
I love Godzilla. I love the little girls that are in the clamshells that from Mothra, and they're like, "Ah." Every time I'm like, oh, okay, cool, I can stop watching it now.
Before we close it out, what are both of your guys' favorite horror movies? Because we were talking about a lot of these different aspects during this podcast.
Ooh.
It's a tough one for you, I bet.
You guys go first. I mean,
Yeah,
I've got my cores, but I'm curious to see what you guys say.
I
All right, I'll
used
go
to
first. Since I
before
asked the
my
question, I'll get it out of the way. Mine is the original Night of the Living Dead. I think that's the scariest fucking thing. Just, yeah, that's mine.
I was a pretty big Jason fan when I was younger. Although I'm rewatching them and just going back, a lot of the movies aren't that great. I just thought Jason was like menacing and brutal. My favorite, mm, shit, man. I used to be pretty fucking scared of the strangers when I was younger. I thought that was creepy as fuck.
You know what was a good one was People Under the Stairs. That was a creepy one. That was a
I've
creepy
never
one.
seen it.
I would say, oh, man, it's really tough to put a finger on 80s horror movies because there's so many fucking gems. Um but I stick with my Carpenter ones. I really like my Carpenter films, and I think one of my favorite ones is probably Big Trouble in Little China.
Dude, that shit is so good.
Yeah,
Fucking
So
great
good.
movie.
that's because they tell you a lot of like Eastern occult stuff in it. I just recently watched it like actually I think we watched it last year. I showed my girlfriend Big Trouble in Little China, and she's studying a bunch of Eastern occult stuff, and they explain a lot of stuff, and I was like,
Oh
oh
yeah.
man, I gotta go back and watch all these old horror movies again, because like if you watch Chucky, the first Child's Play, the first two Child's Plays, I think are like those two, and then don't watch any more of them. Like, or the third one's cool too, but like, um, the first two Child's Play, like the first Child's Play, he's like fucking with voodoo. He's fucking with like all these crazy voodoo stuff. And after learning a bunch of stuff about that and watching them, I'm like, oh my God.
Dude,
Yeah, the horror movies have been telling us the whole time.
I have. And you guys made me think of something too before we wrap this up. I can't remember what martial artist I heard talking about it or what other conspiracy show or some shit, but like everyone, it's hilarious when you see like the energy master martial artists and like doing like the fake like chi blasts and shields and like all that type of shit. That shit is hilarious. But I do think like somewhere along the line, maybe some of these like monkish type of like super meditative, trippy guys have stumbled across some ways of manipulating energy in ways that we don't understand or laugh off. And some dude was saying he got called it like he was like a high up martial artist himself or something to do with like he was very in with like super nationalistic, whether it was Korean or Japanese or whatever. I can't really remember, but like what he was describing sounded like some kung fu movie shit. He was with like some gangster dudes, and they were at a restaurant after dinner and whatever. And there was some guy at the table who claimed he knew some like I can't remember the name for it either. Chinese like black magic kung fu or some shit, and he could
Mhm.
kill plants without touching them. Just like hover his plant hand over these plants, and the plants would like wither away right before. He's like, dude, I gotta get out of here. Like, I don't want to. I can't believe something like that was possible. That changed my life. Fucking wild.
That's awesome.
I would love to hear some crazy woo woo martial arts tales.
The
Well,
People Under the Stairs, is that Wes Craven?
I believe so. Yeah, that one was creepy. That was a creepy one because like you go back and watch that and it's like that shit happens. Fucking shit happens. That's the scariest stuff. Like I had one of my friends, like these Hereditary and Midsummer, right? So
Summer's
like
brutal.
I told my buddy to watch those, and I'm like Midsummer is a horror movie, and he's just like, that's not a horror movie. I'm like, how is it not a horror movie? He's like, it's just not. I'm like, well, you're thinking of like slasher stuff. I'm like, this shit happens every day. This shit fucking happens and you don't hear about it. Like, just because you don't hear about it on the news, I'm like, if you watch these detective shows and stuff, that's like a little granule of what actually happens out here in this plane of existence. And like, and they're telling you like cult shit that like out of nowhere, it's like, oh, well, we can't trace them to where they are. Same with what is that one movie? We talked about it. I mentioned it on the last podcast. I think it was um the hypnotizing movie. What the heck is it?
Bird box or whatever.
No. Um it was a Keenan Peele movie.
Oh.
I forget what it was called. It's where they I think it's like I forget.
Get Out.
Get Out. That's what it was. That was a great one because that told all about hypnotizing people and mesmerizing people and being able to tap into someone's subconscious psyche and control them and like compartmentalize taking their trauma and applying a trigger to it so they can become like useless, which essentially goes down to like mind control and satanic shit.
Pretty much everything we discussed.
Yeah, everything. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is the right show for it. That's for sure.
And we love
Well,
having you on it.
I was gonna say, man, yeah, we this is gonna be a regular thing as long as you'll sit with us, man, because it's fun, dude. I always learn so much when you're on.
Yeah, I'm glad to be on. Thank you for having me. I the majority of my day I work in a place where, they'll listen to me, but then I start talking then I start talking crazy, you know.
It's a therapeutic thing to be able to spit the shit that you know.
Yeah, well, it's funny too, is when I get to spit the best is when I get to like plant seeds and then you start talking to somebody that comes into your work and then you just like they say one thing that you're like, well, have you ever thought about this? And then they bite and then they're just like they want to talk to you for hours. I'm like, listen, I gotta go take your car. Like, but yeah,
Well, for people that may have missed it, you are the incredible artist that has done our artwork that we get so many compliments on. So for folks who may want to get in touch with you for any kind of consignment work or just a straight purchase, things that you already have done, where could they do so?
you can go to slapasscreations.com, which is pretty much a landing page that brings you to my Instagram, to my webs, my Etsy shop, all that. Contacting me, and contact me on any of those.
Check them out. Hit them
Yeah.
up. Buy a
Yeah.
shirt, buy a patch, sticker.
Yeah,
Tell
Make
them we
shows
sent
coming
you.
up.
do it.
All right. Well, shit. Got anything else, brother?
No. I mean, I'm just always watching what's going on with the world and continuing to learn about shit that most people don't want to hear about.
That's what we love to hear. We're here
Yeah, I'm pumped to be on the show and I'll come back whenever.
love it.
Well, we appreciate you being a guest and a listener. So yeah,
Yeah.
we're definitely gonna have you back soon, dude.
And we're
Awesome.
gonna get Mike on some bass and we're gonna jam some riffs.
There
Oh,
we
well,
go.
yeah. You guys are gonna have to come to the house.
Let's go.
I've got plenty of amps and all sorts of stuff.
That would be fun, man.
Yeah,
Yeah, that would be sweet.
We're gonna make it happen. Till
cool.
next time.
I'm down.
All right.
Sounds good, brother.
Come in.
Peace, Matt. Thank you.
Yeah.
Later.